Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. And today's episode of the Reality Revolution will be a little different than other episodes. It'll be a little more personal. I wanted to do an episode on how to overcome addiction and to tell you a little bit about my story. The principles that I'm talking about on these episodes, one of the reasons I'm so inspired about them is that I used the principles of reality transurfing, meditation, and the law of attraction, especially Neville Goddard, to become sober. I'm somebody that knows full well the whole gamut of addiction. My biggest weakness in my life was alcohol, and there were times in my life when I would drink heavily, and I know the full range of different states that are connected to becoming an alcoholic, to being an alcoholic. Today is a Sunday when I'm giving this particular podcast, and I have spent many a Sunday with that nasty headache in the morning from drinking heavily the night before. And I'm no different than most. I have had the whole experience. I have gone to AA and asked to speak to therapists at points in my life so that I could stop drinking. And what I'm telling you is this: I guarantee 100% that you will not create the reality that you want if you are drinking heavily. There's no problem with drinking, and most people have no problem with it. But if you're drinking heavily, you're turning off parts of your brain that are a part of this process. And your subconscious is not concerned about achieving your dreams or goals. It's more concerned about keeping that physical body of yours alive. So if you're out there listening to this, I want to reach out to you. I've been there. I know how hard it can be. But you can overcome this. What you're in right now is a state. So I wanted to explain my story, and I'm going to give you some techniques that I've used. And I'm telling you, whatever you can do to overcome your problem, then if it works, then you should do it. Please consider this entire episode. None of it is criticizing any other modalities that people use to become sober. If you have become sober through AA, that's awesome. If hypnosis is what worked for you, that's awesome. Whatever worked for you, that's awesome. As with all addictions, the ones that are serious and significant, you're never truly over, or you've never truly overcome any of them. They are a day-to-day process. Just like our normal lives, we are in a day-to-day process of becoming states. So I noticed early on when I would drink that I would drink to excess every time. It would be hard for me after a good few beers or alcohol where I would feel that buzz and I'd want to keep it. And so I would continue drinking to keep that buzz, and it would always go bad. And I got to a point where I could drink large amounts, and I've made a fool of myself so many times and done terrible things while I was drunk. I take responsibility for all of them. And so the process of overcoming this addiction and tendency was really important to me at one point. So there are parts of this journey that I've gone on, and becoming sober are what motivate me now. And one of my beliefs is if I sit and focus on my addictions, then I'll only get more of them. That's one of the biggest realizations. So why haven't I addressed an episode to overcoming any sort of addiction? Well, that's part of it. If I tell you that to not talk about the elephant will be there. So I can only go back and just begin and tell you the story all the way back in high school. I have terrible moments. I fell asleep once with a bathtub running, destroyed a good friend of mine's house by doing that. I definitely have driven many times when I shouldn't have driven, and have blacked out so many times and woken up the next day hoping that I had not said something stupid or ridiculous. And I know how it feels, that desire, that emptiness that you get, that you want to fill when you drink. I have tried everything. I do not personally believe that marijuana is addictive. It can be addictive. It can reduce your motivations, but I never had any problems with that in the same level as I did with alcohol. I've tried, you name it, I've tried everything, and they've all been a part of my journey and my process. I've been sober for 3 years now, and I bless myself every day and I'm grateful every day because of that. But the reasons for this sobriety have come to me because of reality transurfing, because of Neville Goddard, because of meditation, and I want to explain what I did. So a lot of people, they're struggling, and then the first thing, well, you need to go to an AA meeting. Well, once I started to understand how I was defining my reality, and I would say, oh, go to an AA meeting. Then I would go to an AA meeting, and they would talk about how much they loved to drink and go into the physical description of the great joy of every drink that they would have. And then I would have to get up and say, I am an alcoholic. I would have to say the I am. And every time that I would go to one of these meetings, I would desperately want to drink afterwards. Every time. I appreciated it, and the stories were great, but it never worked for me. And I had tried before, many times on my journey, to use AA, and it just never worked. I had an uncle that was a recovered alcoholic for many years. One of my heroes had a very successful business and did very well, and came to me and saved my life multiple times. And his thing was, if I don't go to AA, I'm going to die. So I had this belief in my system for a long time that if I'm not going to AA, then I'm going to die. And so I thought there was no other solution. But whenever I would go to one of those meetings, I would just want to drink afterwards. So once I started to explore reality transurfing, then new possibilities opened up for me. I had tried and gone sober for periods of time, for a month or 6 months, but it would never stick. And I tried and worked on it so hard. And one of the best books that I found that I would recommend when people contact me and say, hey, I need help to overcome addiction, I will recommend this book to them. And that is the 30-Day Sobriety Solution. It's absolutely fantastic, written by Jack Canfield and Dave Andrews. And it gives a 30-day step-by-step process that you can follow using the techniques from the law of attraction and success techniques. And by following these techniques, that was the first step. The problem was that I would give up on the 15th day. So then I would continue to work on that, but I would go back over it. I would try to quantum jump. And that's when I said, well, if reality transurfing is kind of working, is there a reality available to me out there where I am sober and I don't have a craving and nothing's wrong? So I started to imagine this other self, this other version of myself who had didn't even think about it, wasn't even an issue. Because I've quit before, but when I would quit, I would go for 60 days thinking about it every day, right? So it would never stick. Or there would be some weak point. I mean, I might have even gone 9 months at a point, but even during the 9-month period, it would cross my mind. There was this part of me, this longing part, to fill that emptiness that I had. So I started to explore this idea that, well, if the universe is what physicists say it is, that there are parallel realities all around us, that there is this multiverse around us. And then I started reading Reality Transurfing, and one of the fundamental concepts discussed at the very beginning of that book is the space of variations, that there is a space of variations where all possibilities are available to us. So I started to imagine that there has to be a place where I'm not drinking. And then I started reading Neville Goddard, and I started seeing that I could assume a state of being sober. And when I would go to bed, I would imagine a state where I have never, in my memory, I don't even think about drinking. That it's never been an issue with me. It's not a problem for me. And I started using the Neville Goddard technique. Then I would do quantum jumps during the day where I would imagine this place and try to jump into this reality, evoking my energy centers. And that is when everything clicked for me. I woke up and went a couple days and I was like, I haven't even thought about drinking. And went a long enough period of time, it was an instantaneous sobriety that had occurred for me. And I've gone back and looked at what happened to me, and it was this jump. It was this acceptance, this idea. Perhaps I was able to subvert my belief system enough in that moment, but I imagined a future where I wasn't drinking, that I was motivated, and then every single day after I stopped drinking, I saw exponential returns. I started to create my reality. I started to have huge solutions to my problems, and it inspired me to write my book. And I wrote my book when I became sober. And I only wish that I could help everybody out there, because I know the deep darkness that you can be in. I know that feeling. So I want to go over the 30-day solution that I went over with the 30-day sobriety solution, and at least give you some of the steps that I did at the beginning as a part of my quantum jump occurred. And these are little roadblocks that come up as you go along. And the first was to commit myself 100%. To commit myself 100% that I'm going to be sober. I'm not going to be half sober. I'm going to be 100%. And then I started to look at what my purpose was. I started to really evaluate my goals, my life, my abilities, my knowledge and experience, and what my purpose should be. And I started to see a future where I could help people, and I could use these energies and experience to really do something more than just myself. And then I became aware of the dualities in myself. The good and evil, the light, the dark, the shadow self, all of these things. And I started to unveil them, being realistic about them. And the fourth step, the first step being the 100%, and then the second step was defining a purpose, and then looking at the dualities. The fourth step for me was forgiveness. Now, the most important person for me to forgive was myself. I had done things and made mistakes in past relationships and done things that haunted me, that I could not forgive myself. Ho'oponopono is one meditation that really helped me during this process. But forgiving myself and forgiving people in my life that had done things to me that had bothered me, that I had carried with me, past girlfriends, past relationships, parents, family members, and I forgave them. Not just forgave them, as I had learned, if they even came up in my mind, then I had to address it. So I really forgave them, and then in the process forgave myself. And in the Neville Goddard process, started to understand that all of this stuff was forgiven anyway, because everybody, even myself, was just a victim of the states that I had been experiencing. I then spent the fifth step was a process of believing in myself and really changing my belief systems, questioning my beliefs, saying, hey, I'm not good enough. I'm too old for this. I don't understand. I had all of these doubts in my mind. And so I spent a period of time unlocking these doubts, changing my affirmations, changing the story that I was telling about myself. And so after I had done that, the sixth step was to really look at the future and evaluate what could happen in a future where I had not drank for a committed period of time, where it wasn't a problem. I had overcome not just the addiction, but all of the emotional and psychological issues associated with it. So the seventh step was for me to look at the actions that I could take. The actions that I could take. So I started exercising. I started imagining a reality where I wasn't. I started drinking more water and really evaluating my body. As I was going through this change, I imagined in the reality that I was in what my body would be like. And I started to follow the idea of the feeling being the secret, but imagining, okay, what would my body and my memories and my focus be like if I had not been drinking for a long period of time, and I started to connect to this reality. So then the 8th step was to look at my core values and what are the things. I was a father, and I cared about the world that I was in, and I started to really evaluate my own trust in myself, my authenticity, the job and the business that I had, and how I was helping. And I started to really evaluate these core values. And every time I did that, the idea of having a drink and the implications of it became unimportant. So the 9th step was to analyze what I was lying to myself about. There's things I was saying about myself that were lies, that I was justifying the drinking that I was doing, and I was saying, oh, it's okay, that I can still do these things, that it wouldn't bother me, that it wasn't a problem, and I had created a facade of lies around this idea. So then the 10th step was to break down my subconscious mind, because I had created patterns of ritual and behavior over decades of drinking, and that would have been subverted by my subconscious mind. And eventually my subconscious mind had broken down and then had been enabling these chemicals to be produced by drinking. And so I had to break down my subconscious mind, and I did that through sleep meditations that I created by myself and others on YouTube, where I would say affirmations and I would program myself while I was sleeping, which is the number one thing that had changed my subconscious mind. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited about them when I create them on this channel. The 11th step that worked for me was tapping. When I would get a sudden urge of energy that I might have used before to dissipate with alcohol, I would use tapping or some kind of Qigong exercise. And so from there, that is when I really found the road to what I wanted to do with those steps. I created affirmations and found a focus on gratitude. I started to gain courage to overcome these things, because it did take courage not to fall back into that numbness, because when you're drinking, you're taking away that raw emotional state. And I developed courage to be that. I started to analyze my emotions, and I was able to find the courage to analyze the emotions. And that's really the next step that really is finding out what emotions had been guiding and pushing me. And so through meditation, I would go back, find the gratitude, and find the courage to overcome these emotions that I had. And I can't tell you how much this helped me in my relationships that I started to have after this. And it helped me to accept in my heart the belief that I could achieve my vision that I had created in my mind. And so I'm reaching out with this episode to all of you. If you're suffering from an addiction, be it to alcohol, cigarettes, whatever it is, understand that these are processes that are taking place in your mind that can be broken. They can be broken through hypnotic programming. They can be broken by breaking down the subconscious mind. But most importantly, you can find a version of yourself in another parallel reality and jump into that reality. And by doing so, you can instantly be in a body that carries the beliefs and memories of someone that is sober. This one thing, over all the other techniques I used, was the key. And so if you guys want me to, I may develop a meditation. If you guys you think that would help you in jumping into to that sober person that you are. But if you're listening to this and you're struggling with this, the number one thing I want you to know is that no matter how long you've been drinking, no matter how hard it is or whatever you're going through, it will be okay. The solutions are faster and easier than you imagine. I know you've tried to quit before. I know you tried to quit whatever it is that you're doing. I know you tried to quit before. You're stuck in the prison of your body, and I can tell you that you can jump out of that body into a healthy body in another parallel reality. You can transurf your way to sobriety. You can do this, and I'm here to help. All of my meditations can be used to find your sobriety. Every single time I tell you to revise your past or find the place of the wish fulfilled, those are all places that you can find your sobriety. And the more that you go within and enter within the consciousness of yourself, then you can see amazing things in your life. These are my daily habits that I continue to use in my sobriety journey that I recommend to you. And that is, number one, journal. Write out a script of the reality that you want. Write through emotional issues that you're having. Put it down on paper. Number two, meditate daily. Meditate daily and imagine the reality where you are sober. And this helps with your mind in so many ways. And number three, visualize the images and short movies that focus on what you want beyond just the sobriety. And four, practice gratitude every morning, every day. Number five, clean up past relationships and spend time with people who are good role models. Surround yourself with good people. Number six, find good affirmations that you do more than just repeat, that you become and that you believe and that you enter into your body. Take control of your emotions. Drink water. Create a vision of your future. It's not that difficult. It can be done. It is not a struggle. Now, the other thing that's interesting, I've known people that have used the 30-day sobriety solution that have gone back and drank moderately. Now, that's rare, but there are cases where you can do it. There is a universe where you can drink moderately. I'm telling you that all things are possible. In my case, I enjoy not drinking because I don't want to, it takes down my energy. And I can only tell you that I've been able to see manifestations and miracles in greater supply once I stopped drinking. And I'm telling you, give it a shot. If you're struggling with some portion of reality creation and you still drink maybe a little bit more than you want to, that could be the reason. That could be what's holding you back from your dreams becoming fully realized. So put a note in the comments. If you're struggling with this, I will imagine sobriety for you. I will imagine you in a reality where sobriety is happening, if that's what you want. Put a note in the comments. I promise you, whoever does that, I promise the least I can do is imagine an incredible future for you. Like this video so that other people can see it and know that the biggest thing that I want you to get out of this is that it can be overcome. It's easy. It's not difficult. And using advanced reality creation techniques, we can become sober faster and easier than all of these old solutions that worked in the past. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution. Welcome to The Reality Revolution. Unlimited possibilities. Dedicated to the spirits who believe life is meant to be magical. Get out. Yes, some really good meditations, and you discuss. It contains advanced viewpoints of the multidimensional human beings of the 21st century. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Sometimes you need to go back. We were able to visualize with exploring stuff that's fun to explore. I can tell. Unleash your potential. Some topics on how to change the subconscious mind and some I'm your host, Brian Scott.